The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Defion Productions podcast. I'm your host, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin, Don. And I'm rolling up my sleeves because we're going to have a discussion today that kind of veers off from just talking about Bitcoin and crypto. There's some things happening in our society now that I think are much bigger than Bitcoin and crypto, and we're gonna cover some of that today. We will talk about Bitcoin. We will talk about the Jerome Powell situation that occurred late last night. I'm gonna play that video of him speaking. We're gonna talk about that. We're going to also talk about President Trump a couple of days ago making a statement in regards to credit card rates and capping them. We will talk about all that stuff. But we are going to jump into the hot topic that you can't jump on social media and not see and not get somebody's perspective on. And I want to talk even more so about that certain situation than just social media as a whole. And, platforms like the ones you're watching this video on right now and how they're affecting or infecting our society in ways that I just don't think are good. Before we do that, let's jump into what we're, typically here for, which is the Bitcoin market. Bitcoin today is up a little bit in the last day, almost 1%. We're sitting at 91,200. Since we filmed the last podcast, it is down almost 3%, 2.93%. Total market cap 1.8 trillion. Ethereum at about a little under 3,100, down 4.2%. The total market cap of crypto, let me refresh to make sure we got a correct one, 3.1 trillion. Fear and greed index is neutral at 41. Looking through here, things are kind of boring in the crypto space, which maybe is why I've been so infected by the narratives and the conversations and the things that are going on in our social media. This Minnesota shooting, man, and I want to be very careful with this conversation because I'm going to say right off the bat a couple of things to set the stage or to set some ground rules. Number one, what I think and feel is not really relevant. My feelings on who's right, who's wrong, or how I feel about what happened in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't have a lot of value. It just doesn't. The second thing, any loss of life, no matter the circumstances, is always tragic. It's terrible. There's a family that's mourning the loss of someone that is no longer in their lives. That's never a good thing. I'm not going to celebrate that, no matter if I think right, wrong, and different. And the fact that there are people celebrating that is just absolutely egregious in my opinion. And I want those ground rules to be thrown out there when we have this conversation. One, it's not important or relevant what I think about the situation itself. Although I will give some opinions, don't take them with a grain of salt. They don't have a lot of value. But I really want to talk about social media and what this has meant for social media and how we view social media. I'm gonna show this if we could get this up here, Rich, because this is kind of where I want to start this conversation. There's a lot of information that's being shared on both sides, whether you're on the right or you're on the left, that isn't true. That people are feeling like they have to present to make people believe their side or support their side more or think something. And it's just, I don't understand why we're doing these types of things, and I don't think that they're valuable. So I'm going to point one out. Here's one of the major ones. This is the screenshot of, let me click it so we can get a better look at it. This is the screenshot that's going around of the individual that lost their life on Wednesday in Minnesota, of a rap sheet. And if you take a look at this rap sheet up here, you'll see that there's a date of birth that's 1980 on this rap sheet. And it's been reported that she was 37 years old. So simple math will tell you that 1980 and 37 years old in 2026 don't line up. So that's obviously not real. And a couple of internet sleuths went even further and looked and saw some of these docket numbers, and the docket numbers are not even real, not associated with her. This is what a real rap sheet would look like. And if you take a look at this one, you can obviously see it's been doctored. You can obviously see it's not real. It's just, it serves no purpose. Rich, I'm sure you've seen this. I'm sure you could kind of chime in and
Sure.
on some of the points that you may have seen.
Yeah, I respect your position that this is one of those things that suddenly everybody's an expert about, what's a good shooting and all that stuff, and none of us are right. It's like when I watch Law and Order, and then I'm an expert because I've watched, Law and Order for 20 years. I know how courts work. Like I don't. I only know how TV shows work. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I've never even made it onto a jury duty. I've always been excused before we get to that point. So I don't know what's legal. I'm not a police officer. But everybody knows their buddy's a guy and he's a this, and I've been in law enforcement for 30 years. None of it matters except I love the way that you're approaching this in terms of the fact that we are falling for a lot of crap. And I don't know how we're still falling for it when we realize how much people are using Canva and AI to trick us. So,
yeah, this was a good post on X that I saw last night that really got conversations going. Probably not for the good. It's kind of really this weekend. I just spent a lot of time just contemplating if I was just going to literally delete my social media, based on how people were reacting to certain things. So this guy, Carmen Sabia, at the very bottom of this post, if you take a look at it, he says, "I'm a MAGA conservative." So keep that in mind that this is a MAGA guy that's sharing his thoughts on this situation. "I believe any of us who have decent-sized platforms have an obligation to squash misinformation. There is a misinformation on Renee Good that needs to be addressed. Yes, I have fact-checked this information as a journalist using actual sources that are not tough to find even as a non-journalist. The criminal records being shown on her and her wife are both false. The photo of her mocking the death of Charlie Kirk is also not real. She was not a domestic terrorist or a bad person, just someone who made a tragic mistake." That part, I believe, is more opinion than fact. I think we can agree on that. That's him saying what he thinks. I don't that part isn't as relevant as the two parts above, which are that the mugshot or the arrest report is fake, and that picture of Charlie Kirk, which you were telling me before we went on camera, Rich, is actually a whole nother person that was actually arrested, right?
Right.
So that's a whole nother person who we superimposed, or somebody superimposed her on that.
Yeah.
So this part is important. We do not need character assassination of someone whose family is already suffering. And then he says, "I'm a MAGA conservative. There's no benefit for me to squash this misinformation other than my obligation to do so." So I don't think that you need to be sharing things that are not real to support what it is you feel. Like for some people, they're very pro law enforcement. They're very pro ICE, right? That's a certain side. I believe the right is more on the ICE side, the more on the law enforcement side, the more on they should be doing what they're doing side. And the left is ICE shouldn't exist. ICE needs to get out of the streets. They're always wrong. They never do anything right, right? I think I kind of summed that up pretty much correctly, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's people in the middle, but you're right. Most of the people
Not many.
on social media talking about this they're probably in the 10% opinions in one side or the other,
Yeah. I don't know what's to gain from these false and again, I'm talking about this Minnesota stuff, but everything, even the Bitcoin and crypto sphere, I see things that support both sides, and people are putting out false information because they don't like Bitcoin, or they don't like crypto, or they don't like the TradFi system, which I don't, or don't like the Fed, which I don't. And it's posting things that are just flat out not true, that can be fact checked and seen are not true, don't help your argument. It doesn't help people get on your side. All it does is create divisiveness, make people fired up and enraged, and then a whole sect of people are sharing these things and then will argue with you. Like I was arguing with somebody earlier today about the validity of that screenshot I just showed you, and I was circling the birth date saying, why are we arguing? There's nothing that you can see that the birth date is not real. Any official document you get should have proper information of the person who the document is about. So if she's 37 years old, her date of birth cannot be 1980.
Right.
So you can look at that right away and realize, well, there's something not right. I should probably look more into this. And then all you do with a little bit of research is find out it's not real. Does that mean she doesn't have a rap sheet? Does that mean she's never been arrested? No, I don't know those things to be true. What I do know is that what I'm looking at as an official document is not official. It's a fake document. And pointing that out doesn't make me support anything except for trying to find out what the truth is.
Right.
Same thing with the Charlie Kirk picture. It's not her. It's a completely different person.
Right.
And that doesn't have
and that
any.
person's been well identified.
It has, and it
was.
doesn't have any. It doesn't have any
And
relevance.
that person, when it was fact checked and it was proved that that was a person, that person was suspended by their employer.
Yeah.
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 So
and
that
it
person faced consequences for doing something, whether
rightfully
you like
so.
Charlie Kirk or not. It was wrong. It was something she shouldn't have done. She faced consequences for it. But it's it's just this misinformation that people want to be misinformed because it's in sports too. Well, I believe this because it betters my team should have won, or that team should have got a touchdown, or whatever it is, because it messes with their narrative, and people are going on these social media sites, which I don't care which one it is, because they're trying to find that page, channel, whatever you want to call it, thread that supports their beliefs. They want to be reinforced what they think. So that's why people are posting stuff, or whether it's bots or AI or whatever it is, it's some guy in Nepal, who knows, but it's created such discourse we can't even have real conversations anymore.
I think it's been created and curated in such a way that you have to question absolutely everything you see online now.
Oh, for sure.
Because even using AI, or even like showing things that have been fact checked by other people that do that type of stuff for a living, people don't even trust that. So it's like, if you don't trust anything except what supports your narrative, where do we get truth from?
Well, here's an example of something happened to me. I know you got into a little bit of an altercation, online with somebody, just trying to have an honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I read all your stuff. I see when your stuff posts. Over the holidays, I was on social media and something popped up, and I did not share it on purpose. Somehow I was probably half asleep on the couch, and I somehow shared it. There was no comment. It was just like a thing, and it was like, it wasn't something that I had planned to share, and I had several people attack me because what I was and tell me how wrong I was and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I had to go back and see why they were yelling at me.
Did you have a comment, or you
No,
just
I didn't
it
even
was
have
just
a comment. It was literally like, and actually in the comment section where it was, I think it was like just like a couple characters that my thumbs accidentally pressed. Like, like a butt dial almost, like that type of thing. And then I said, well, sorry, I didn't really plan to post it. And then the guy wanted to have this conversation. I'm like, I don't want to have a conversation about this. He's like, well, you got to, if you're going to have an opinion, I'm like, I'm telling you, like, so I just unfriended these people. Like, I don't need this in my life. And that's why, like, every once in a while I cancel my certain social media, whatever you want to call them. I dropped the app for a while just because I just don't feel like engaging in this shit with people.
Yeah, I this weekend I really had a serious thought about deactivating all my social media accounts, at least to take like a break for like a reset, because I was having conversations which I thought were like good discourse to like, okay, you feel a certain way, I feel a certain way, and then it's like now I'm being attacked, and characterized as something that I'm not, and then words being put into a context that I never used them in. Let me go a little bit backwards. When this first happened on Wednesday, I made a post, which I definitely still believe. I think that it's very important that we have a conversation about accountability. I think that too many times when these types of situations happen and somebody loses their life, we get so caught up in the end result and the person that's still alive or the people that are still alive. And we never say, yes, it's bad that that person lost their life, but what could they have done differently that we could learn from so we don't get put in that spot? And as a society, we have completely tossed that to the side, and we get so enraged about the end result that we never take any time to learn from anything. And I was on multiple people's posts, and this is my fault for doing it, I guess, and what led to me feeling the way that I felt. And I was saying such. They were saying F ICE, that officer needs to die, like all this bad stuff. And I'm like, okay, like I respect how you feel about all that stuff. And all that stuff is good and well, and you may be right. And I'm not gonna say you're not. And I said, but can we start to have a conversation about like how we as a people can learn from these people that get in these situations and scenarios, and how we can live our lives in a way to never be in those types of scenarios. And I brought up George Floyd, which is another situation that people get triggered on. And I think this is a completely fair assessment without me coming off as a complete asshole, unless you're just narrow-minded and have a certain viewpoint and just are going to think and feel whatever you feel. I said, George Floyd doesn't die on that day, May 30th, 2020. Most likely, if he's not passing fake money in a store and high on fentanyl. The combination of those two things, along with not complying with the officer when he came in contact with the officer, had a role in him ultimately losing his life. Does that mean the officer isn't responsible? The court of law has already decided that. It's not for Don to decide. He's sitting in prison for 20 years. He's liable. He was responsible. He murdered him in the eyes of the law. It doesn't matter what I think or feel on that. Those are the facts. But I think for us to just not acknowledge that if decisions aren't made differently and you don't put yourself in certain spots, the likelihood of you being the next one that we're talking about as a national story significantly decrease. And I don't understand why it's not okay to have that conversation. And I don't understand why I'm anti-George Floyd, I'm anti-human empathy, I'm anti-people by bringing something up like that.
Oh, and I agree with you. I like the
A lot of people don't. I had very heated arguments with people in conversations because they thought I was being insensitive by saying that.
I like what you said when you started with saying accountability. And as soon as you said accountability, I'm like, she has a level of accountability. He has a level of accountability. His supervisors have a level of accountability. The people that put these officers in these situations have accountability. There's a lot of accountability to go around for all of this. The people in her life that knew what she was doing, if this was some of the stuff that we've read is true, that she was going out and she was being supportive. There are people there are things that like if I was my kids were going to go off and do, I'd say, well, have you thought about just be careful because blah, 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 right? Like those are things as your kids get older, you'll say, hey, be careful. There's people out there going to do weird things. You be careful. There's a level of accountability. Like, so across the board, it's not just the two people that are directly involved in this, the woman that died and the officer. There's a level of accountability and all I want for any of these situations, and I think this is reasonable, is that we give the facts and then everybody gets essentially their day in court. Like that we get to see an open investigation, and that's all I want. I don't think he should be no, there has everything. If she's accountable, then he has to be held accountable for everybody's responsible for their own actions, and there should be level of investigation that's fair. And that is, I think that's, people will probably say, well, you just don't care. Like all I'm saying is that accountability goes across the board, and we should be allowed to accept that that's true. Maybe they were both wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like that we are not looking at all sides We're only looking at what supports my narrative and what I believe in. And that's a right and a left. It's not there. There is my feeling is neither side is right. We have both sides of the political spectrum flat out wrong, which is I mean, when you think about like how could that be possible? That's where we're at. I don't think the right or the left is right on almost anything right now. I think they get it wrong on almost every single issue.
I think where a lot of people got very triggered when this happened was within minutes, it felt like big higher ups who could not have had much information were already in front
Creating
of
the narrative. The narrative was already crafted.
They were already
both sides.
That is probably,
and that's the social media problem that we have.
That
Yes, you're right.
As soon as that happened, there was and literally 3 different people within the administration were saying 3 completely different things. And I think the regular person was like, what the... And that just triggered everybody because there was so much misinformation. And if they would have just gone and said nothing and said, you know what, we're going to let the facts pan out.
Adam Schiff, who is a sitting congressman,
yeah,
ran with a narrative
yeah.
that the mainstream media said minutes after she was murdered, killed, that she was just a mom dropping her kids off, trying to get home, which we now know was anything but the truth.
Right.
Which, again, doesn't mean it's okay for that she died or she should have died.
No,
but what I'm saying is
that the other side was also already...
The other side was like case closed. The other side was case closed.
Yes.
FAFO. That's what they were saying. Literally, that's what they said. Literally, our elected officials were FAFO. That's what our I think it was what not the FBI, somebody in the DOJ or somebody on that Trump administration, after that happened, said she got FAFO. That's what happened. No facts. We don't know any facts yet, but fuck around and find out. With no empathy and no sympathy. She's dead. She should have died. And then the other side saying that she was just this poor woman that was just driving through that got shot minding her own business. Right. Neither of those things were true.
Right.
But both of those things creates enough energy on both of those sides to get people fired up that 4 or 5 days later, people on each side will refuse to listen to anything factual because they've already crafted what they believe to be true, which on both sides doesn't have any semblance of or maybe some semblance, but is not based in a total reality.
There's so many layers to this that, like the way the media covered it, both, whether you're a leaning right media or a leaning left media, that their narrative and who they're interviewing and who they're saying things about, the fact that there's so many things like misinformation that that came out that was immediately, and it's frustrating because it just triggers everybody, but there's also a level of me that, again, I say it all the time, is that there's a part of the administration and there's a part of our political system as well as our media that loves this stuff because it's going to, like, if I'm the president of X News, whatever news channel you watch, this is good for business. Because everybody's tuning in.
It's all about clicks.
And I have students that worked in media.
It's all about clicks.
And many of them will leave working in the media industry, working for television news specifically, because of what's expected of them. There's a fire, and their producer, their boss tells them to go to the house and get an interview with the mom. Their baby just died in a fire, but go get the story. And that is because that sells advertisement. And that's how we stay open, and that's how we have our business, and that's our business model. So, like, we know, unfortunately, that these are that we're just jaded as a society, and we love to hear somebody tell us our side of the story is right.
I'm going to tie a bow on this because I don't want to spend the entire podcast talking about Minnesota or talking about lack of accountability or how social media absolutely sucks now. So I'm just going to show what I posted 4 days ago. After, posting my initial thoughts and getting blowback from both sides, both sides saying, which is usually normal when somebody's apolitical, both the lefties call you a MAGA conservative. The MAGA conservatives call you a liberal. That's just I've been going through that for years. So it's just this issue was just a very, very hot topic. So I posted, I have opinions. That's what they are. I hold no monopoly on truth, and my personal opinions are not influenced by a political party. I can be, and often am, wrong. I don't post things to make people mad. I think discourse and dialogue is good. If we are friends on Facebook, even in disagreement, I hold no resentment or ill feelings towards you. Would like others to do more of the same. And that's just where I'm going to leave that. We'll jump into like real stories that have more to do with this podcast, which is going to sound like I'm railing on the right because a lot of the stuff has been the right doing some things that are questionable lately. But we'll start with Jerome Powell. Late last night, Jerome Powell, which is just absolutely unprecedented and wild, released a video, little less than 2 minutes, defending himself because I guess an indictment's coming down on the Federal Reserve chair. And I'll let Jerome basically tell you why, and then we can talk about. Have you seen this yet, Rich?
I have.
Okay, we can talk about it after.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned in part a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you.
This video makes it really, really difficult to argue against the Trump administration being an outright dictatorship. And I'm not saying I believe that. I'm just saying that watching that 2-minute video and hearing Jerome Powell say what he said and realizing that there could be a potential indictment coming down because of a decision which he's well within the scope of his job description, even if we don't like it, which I typically don't. I'm a huge anti-Fed guy and I'm a huge anti-Jerome Powell guy. However, he's literally, like he said, been confirmed by Congress to make those types of decisions. Whether we agree with them, think they're good or not, he's allowed by law to suck. He's literally allowed to be bad at his job.
And tell the president, no, I don't want to do that.
Yes, like I when I saw that video, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I saw this video last night, I had to fact check it wasn't AI. I thought it was fake. I didn't think it was real until I saw multiple news outlets posting it, and then went to the official site and saw that it was a real video. He really posted that. That's dangerous. This is and again, I am someone who is hashtag end the Fed guy. I think we should eradicate the Fed. I don't like the Federal Reserve. I think it's long served its purpose. We should move on from these cronies. But there's a process that you would go through to do these types of things, and making up charges that are not real. I mean, there's been plenty of feds that have made bad choices. I mean, think about the great financial crisis. I mean, we had a global crisis based on bad policy and decision making, and we didn't indict Bernanke. This is just absolutely
And
wild.
what the indictment is about is
I don't know how
already
anybody.
testified. There was no charges by
Nope.
Congress.
Nope.
It was a Senate hearing. There's a video where they're walking through the building and they're looking at the renovations. They just were trying to find something so they can intimidate the Fed. It's all about intimidation. That's how this administration has worked. They did it the last time. They keep congressional people in line and departments in line by saying we're going to primary you. He says it all the time. He said it about several people yesterday that he wants them to prime. That's why you see a lot of people that are willing to stand up against him lately have also decided not to run again because they don't want to deal with this anymore. I mean, if you think that it's not, there's just too many examples of him and his, and the worst about it is, and I'm no Biden fan either. And do I think that they criminalized the Department of Justice in the last administration? Without a doubt.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
he ran against the criminals using the department as your private, like Gestapo kind of thing, and that we shouldn't be criminalizing blah blah blah. And he's doing it, out of revenge. Like it's just he's mad because someone did it to him, so he's going to come back because you're not doing what he says. And some people like the fact that he's a bully. I think that a lot of MAGA likes him being a bully. They like it. So then, okay, if he's being a bully, own it. Right? That's just my opinion on it. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Fed either. I'm not a fan of Jerome Powell, but I think he thinks he's doing his job. Let's put it that way.
This is a really good post on X that kind of encompasses this whole situation and kind of puts it into a good context. For 113 years, Fed chairs could defy presidents without facing prosecution. That ended January 9th, 2026. Powell's statement today, the DOJ probe, threatens the Fed's independence and is directly linked to his refusal to follow Trump's rate demands. A sitting Federal Reserve chairman just accused the Justice Department of weaponizing criminal prosecution to enforce presidential monetary policy. This is not interpretation, not interference, his exact words. The mechanism is now visible. December 18th, 2025, FOMC holds rates, defying Trump. January 9th, 2026, DOJ serves subpoenas. May 2026, Powell's term ends. 21 days from rate defiance to criminal threat. 4 months until the deadline. The renovation probe is the legal pretext. The rate demands are the objective. The prosecution threat is the enforcement. If Powell capitulates, rates cut to whatever the White House wants, every future Fed chair knows the rules. If Powell resists, prosecution, removal, replacement with someone who complies. Either path ends the same way. Central bank independence dies, not through legislation, but through the prosecutional power of the executive branch. This is the most consequential shift in American monetary governance since 1913, and it's being framed as a building cost investigation. The end of Fed independence ended this week. Most people won't realize it for months. These are my thoughts. And I will speak to this part as somebody who has experience in the realm of psychological analogy and counseling and all the stuff that I have 15 years experience doing. President Trump was unfairly prosecuted multiple times during the course of his last presidency and this presidency. Some of it may be justified, but all of it as a whole, they came after him, right? I think we can both agree that it was excessive.
Agreed.
There were some things in there that were just unnecessary. President Trump is the type of individual, personality type, that he's going to be an eye for an eye guy. You're not going to do to him something that he's not going to, when he gets the opportunity and chance, come right back and do to others. So I think what he's doing this presidency is saying, you weaponize the DOJ on the left when I was out of power. Now that I'm back in power, every time something happens I don't like, I'm going to do the same thing you did to me to everybody else. I don't say that to justify what he's doing. I say that because that's dangerous. And I think that we're seeing that play out. And I think of all the things he's done so far, weaponizing the DOJ, and we can have an argument and a debate back and forth what you think is or isn't being weaponized. This 100% is him using the DOJ, weaponizing the DOJ to go after somebody who merely doesn't do what he says.
If this is probably the most blatant example of something I've ever seen.
This is a blatant overstep.
Because
it's non-negotiable and not debatable.
It's not in office. Like, it's not someone who's not working. Like, it's an active person that is not doing what you want them to do. So you're finding a way to punish them because you can't fire them because he's an independent person.
You can't take him off a committee in Congress.
Right,
You can't get other Republicans to say, we're going to not vote for them. Like, he literally, the only means he has is to do what he just did, to try to get Powell to do what he wants him to do. This is absolutely dangerous. This is worse. This is worse.
He's also charged other people. Like,
this is worse than all that.
The one that they threw out. Because,
Kelly, the guy that Hexit is trying to get court-martialed.
Yeah.
This is worse.
I mean, but then the other, one of the previous chairs of the FBI or whatever, like
Comey. This is worse.
When they threw that one out.
This
but
is
again,
worse.
At least with those, like, those guys aren't actively They weren't in. They're like, well, Kelly's still a sitting senator, but like, but this is the worst one.
And here's the thing. He has no leg to stand on with this. Powell, even if he got indicted, would never get prosecuted in a court of law. Right. No judge that is worth his weight of anything is going to agree that Powell did anything that isn't in the realm of his ability to do. Right. We may not like it. I think personally he sucked as a Fed chair, but he's not on trial for sucking as a Fed chair. Right. He's given a job, and you're allowed. You should do a good job, but it's not against the law to suck. It's just you get replaced when you suck. You get fired when you suck. You don't get prosecuted when you suck. So this is setting an absolutely scary precedent. And what he has really done here is he's neutering and neutralizing Powell for the next 4.5 months. Because Powell's term ends in May. So now Powell, even though he knows this is completely frivolous, still has to get a lawyer, still has to file motions, and still has to get this thrown out. So he's got to waste time that should be spent being the Fed chair, worrying about monetary policy, and running Fed meetings. He's got to spend some of that time fighting this frivolous case, which Trump is going to hope that Powell's going to say, you know what, F this, I'm out. Like, this isn't worth the aggravation. Which, as much as I despise Jerome Powell and do not like him, I hope he sticks it out. Even though I want him, I can't wait till his term ends. I don't want it to end this way.
Well, the fact that he dropped the video tells me that he's like, because I mean, what I do like about Powell is he's pretty blunt. Like, when they were asking him, like, a while back, they were asking him some questions, and the video's great. It's just like, no. He just said no. He didn't even justify it. He's like, no, we're not doing that. No. It's just not. And so I think he's like, he's got lawyers, he's got money. And to be honest, he won't pay for the lawyers because it'll come out of the Fed budget. It's just going to be because it's within the context of his job. So it's not like he has to hire a personal attorney. He may choose to hire a personal attorney. He may decide to countersue the federal government for whatever unjust prosecution. He may do that with a thing. So this is one of those things that it's like, all right, well, I'm just going to come back and sue. Like, this is what people do. You suing me, so I'll sue you. Like, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, especially because it's not like he's got 2 years to go. He's got 4 months or 5 months or whatever it is.
Yeah,
so he's probably going to stick it out. And because this is one of those things that in 3 weeks we won't even hear about it. It'll drift off the front page, and we'll be talking about some other stupid thing. Super Bowl's coming, so we'll be talking about that. That's
Trump was busy this weekend because that wasn't all the news he was making, which is typically the case. The next story here is Trump posted on Truth Social on, what's today, the 12th? This would have been Friday. On the 9th, on Friday, Please be informed that we will no longer let the American public be ripped off by credit card companies that are charging interest rates of 20 to 30% and even more, which festered unimpeded during the Sleepy Joe Biden administration, which is just why, like, you're an idiot, honestly. Like, we've had 20 or 30% rates for like 20 years. Like, Biden didn't do that. Like, affordability. Effective January 20th, 2026, I, as President of the United States, am calling for a 1-year cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. Coincidentally, the January 20th date will coincide with the 1-year anniversary of the very historic and successful Trump administration. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again, President Donald J. Trump.
He can't enforce that, right? He can't make it policy.
Even in a world where he does and could.
Right.
Do you know, like, I agree with the premise that 20 and 30% rates are high and people do get ripped off. I will absolutely, unequivocally agree with that. But on January 9th, 11 days before you want to enact this, thinking that taking it from 20 or 30% to 10% will not have an absolutely catastrophic effect on banks, not only on just, and no, don't feel sorry for the banks, but the banks are publicly traded companies. You don't think that overnight changing the rates from 30% to 10% will not completely overhaul how banks decide to lend out money.
Well, and here's the funny thing I want to counter with this. And this is one of those things that, like, people were all getting all excited because they're excited that they've got this credit card debt. Well, for someone who has no credit card debt, you know what I'm going to say? No, that's not right. I purposely pay off my credit cards all the time. I don't hold that debt. So I'm just going to go. I'm playing the devil's advocate guy. Remember student loans? No, you got to pay the loan off.
It's not a good argument.
You borrowed the money, put it on your credit card.
But you know where I sit on that.
You know what the rates are. You get the little
I don't like that argument.
I don't like the argument either.
Okay. You're just throwing an argument out there?
I'm throwing the argument
easily
that if
shredded.
You don't like,
easily
if you think
shredded.
everybody should pay off their college loans, then you should say everybody should also pay off their credit card loans.
Okay, I see what you're saying because that side does have that. You're right. That you're
correct.
Saying
is that
the
why
right
are you
right does have that
like,
philosophy. You're right.
Because you don't want to give a break to the poor college
Yeah.
kid. So why am I giving a break who signed a
I see why
agreement?
I see your analogy.
I'm not saying
I
that
know.
it's
Yep.
Again, you get what I'm trying to do.
It was good
here?
that you brought that up because I took it as you saying it, and now I recognize.
I'm being a guy on social media.
No, you're being the side that's going to support this and then not support the other thing, which goes back to the beginning of this podcast about being in an echo chamber and being completely detached from reality.
Right.
You're going to tell people that when you take out student loans, you have to pay it, and then be happy and clap that your president's saying, well, you took out a credit card, you were getting charged 30, now you're only going to get charged 10. And again, that's really good you brought that up, and I'm glad that you did. The angle that I'm going to take is that credit card companies are going to be even stricter on who's allowed to have credit, and not only that, here's a potential scenario. You have a credit card with a $5,000 limit on it, right? You've been making all your payments. You don't pay your card off. You carry a balance, but let's say you have $2,000 balance on your $5,000 card. You make a couple $100 payment. Your interest rate was like 20%. They're making a couple dollars on you. You're making good payments, and all of a sudden it goes down to 10%, and the bank decides, you know what? I'm taking your credit card limit from $5,000 to $2,000, and now you're maxed out on your card. Yep. They can do that. Read the terms of service. They can do that. Yep. So now you went from having $3,000 of a limit, making your payments, getting charged a little bit of interest, being okay, to now, not only does that affect your bill, it affects your credit report because now your credit usage has gone down, and now you're making overcharge payments. It completely changes everything, and that's a reality that could potentially happen by trying to make this change in 11 days. I'm not saying that we shouldn't take a look at credit card companies charging these rates and come up with a formulated, thought out, well-executed, efficient plan and enact it. But just tweeting something out or truth socially or whatever the hell you call it and saying, you know what, in 11 days, this is what we're doing, figure it out, is not rational.
And everything, like, this is one of those things, too. It's like, you know, he needs a distraction. He's the king of the distractions. Like, we aren't even talking about Venezuela anymore or Greenland because all this other stuff happened. And, like he does these things quite often, I think, out of like, let's do it. Whether some of his guys around him are suggesting this, whether it's Project 2025 or whatever, but he does these things, and a lot of them, I think, are trying to, be popular, like try to get some level of people to gain some support because, his approval ratings are in the toilet.
So in a typical just another week in the Donald Trump White House, not only did we have the situation with Jerome Powell, not only did we have the situation about credit cards, which I just talked about, we have this other situation, if you want to put it on the screen, that is occurring this week that could have catastrophic effects on our economy. You want to put this and share this tweet that he put today? This week, the Supreme Court is expected to rule on tariffs. Okay? This is what Truth Social, whatever the hell you call it, today on the 12th. The actual numbers that we would have to pay back if, for any reason, the Supreme Court were to rule against the United States of America on tariffs would be many hundreds of billions of dollars. And that doesn't include the amount of payback that countries and companies would require for the investment they are making on building plants, factories, and equipment for the purpose of being able to avoid the payment of tariffs. When these investments are added, we are talking about trillions of dollars. It would be a complete mess and almost impossible for our country to pay. Anybody who says that it can be quickly and easily done would be making a false, inaccurate, or totally misunderstood answer to this very large and complex question. It may not be possible, but if it were, it would be dollars that would be so large that would take many years to figure out what number we are talking about and even who, when, and where to pay. Remember, when America shines brightly, the world shines brightly. In other words, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I paraphrase the end. So to characterize his tweet, okay? I want to put this into context. He has left this in the hands of the Supreme Court because he doesn't know what will happen if he's ruled against. So in plain English, there was no contingency plan. He just bulldozed ahead, figuring that everything he was going to do was be peachy clean. And if God forbid it wasn't, there was no plan B. There was just plan A. So if what he says is true and they don't know what to do and there is no plan, and betting markets have this like as a toss-up, I believe. It's not. It's like 50-50 if they're gonna say that the tariffs are constitutional or not. If they come back with the other side of this, it's going to be a bad second half of the week in the markets trying to figure all this shit out. So you may potentially see another like April dump, like Liberation Day in the markets, when the markets realize and digest that, yeah, the Supreme Court's like, yeah, Donnie, you couldn't do any of this. And he just tweeted saying, yeah, we don't know what we're going to do if that happens. We have no clue. He literally said it. It may not be possible, but if it were true, it would be dollars that would be so large it would take many years to figure out. And what number they are talking about, and even who, when, and where to pay, we don't know.
And I don't even know who his economic advisors are. So I don't know who are the people that should be. I mean, I know who's running the FBI. I know who's running the DOJ. Those people we see on TV all the time. But I don't really even know who's economic. The one guy, I can't think of who's the one that comes
Howard
out.
Lutnick?
Was it?
Howard Lutnick or Pete
Lutnick, yeah, like those guys, but they've said nothing
Scott
about
Bessent.
this.
Scott Bessent.
That's one. Neither one of them have said anything about any of this. So I don't even know. Like, I don't think. But again, like if you're going to do these things, like the Venezuela thing, like he assumed that Exxon and these companies wanted to go in and do it, and they're like, we don't want to do this. We have our apparatus. We don't want to spend billions and trillions of dollars to build infrastructure in Venezuela, full well knowing that they're going to do it, and then the next president could say, you're right, Venezuela, we shouldn't even be here. Like those companies do not want to get in there and then find out what's going to happen the last time that Venezuela renationalizes. Like and he had no plan for that. What do you mean you don't want it? You don't. Then he got mad then he posted on social truth about he's mad at Exxon. Like like I'm not, should be happy with Exxon, but it was just kind of like he just does these things. And then the markets just don't. The markets, like you said 3-4 weeks ago, they kind of stopped reacting to some of this stuff because they don't even know.
They're going to react on Wednesday if it goes against the United
This
States.
is different.
This is a big deal,
Yeah.
and I think he just made it a bigger deal by tweeting what he tweeted.
That he doesn't know what's going on.
That he doesn't know what's going to happen. That was, I don't know what his intention was. If he would, I think I'm going to guess. I can't get inside of his head, but I think there's some world where he believes he can sway the courts going one way or another based on what he says.
He can swing one juror
because he's a narcissist,
Right.
and he believes that he can do
Right.
those types of things.
And I think if he's already swung them, he swung them a long time ago. Like I don't think he's swinging them now.
This presidency so far has been nothing short of wild and crazy.
And
From
we got 3
from
years to go.
start to now. There, I mean, and again, we knew what we were getting ourselves into because we had the last one from 16 to 20, and you know all the tweets but he has brought completely different energy this time around, and I've seen some videos, and again, like I talked about at the beginning of this podcast, you don't know what's doctored, you don't know what's true. It's so hard to figure what things are out. But he's 80 years old now. I've seen some videos of him like losing his train of thought, falling asleep in meetings, like doing things that an octogenarian would be doing, which is why we should stop electing 80-year-olds to the office of president of the United States.
The last 4 years was to complain about how old Biden was. I'm sorry, like you're not 50. You may act like you.
Yeah,
you act like
and I'm
you're-
not saying
yeah.
I'm not saying that Biden wasn't
Biden was
worse.
doing it too. Like,
Biden, and I want to be clear, Biden was exhibiting much worse
of
than
course.
Trump is now.
Agreed.
But there are signs, as there should be. He's 80 years old. It's not a knock. It's what happens. I'm 47 and I forget shit. I can only imagine
I mean, like
another 23 years
Marco.
how it's going to be.
Marco passed him a note, and he read the
33
note.
years,
He
whatever.
read the note like the note was like, "Do this," and he read the note like it's like when I used to.
I know. I saw
Like
that.
when someone reads a play in high school.
Talk
and
to
they
Chevron,
read
they wanna talk to you.
Exit stage right. You know, like he read exit stage right. He read the directions in the note,
Which is what
and
Biden.
and you could see everybody giggling and
Which is
getting,
what
like,
Biden was doing in the teleprompter.
and
Remember, he was
Biden
reading
doing-
pause.
Biden was
next
doing it
next
too,
paragraph. Like, yeah, that's
I mean,
what.
my father was 80 something when he passed away, and he shouldn't have been. He was a sharp guy, but he shouldn't have been running the country. Like I could see my father declining when in his early 80s. Like especially when you're in this most stressful job in the freaking planet. It's the most. I don't think there's a more stressful job than president. We've seen presidents age like incredibly in 4 to 8 years while they're president. Like what happens to their bodies because of the level of stress. Like
I can only imagine what's in store the next 3 years. What's flat out 100% is that Trump wants his supporters and base to not let up and have no mercy on the left. And again, I'm no supporter of the far left. I'm no supporter of woke politics. I don't subscribe to many of the things that the left supports, believes, all that kind of stuff. However, I don't think it's good for anybody if we continue to vilify them as an enemy. Which, to be fair, that side is doing the same thing to the right. Trump is the enemy, MAGA is the enemy, ICE is the enemy. Like this vilification of both sides. Like, when does it stop? Like, when are we going to just say, you know what? Like, I don't agree with you politically, but like, you're not the enemy. You just think of things differently than I do. Like, are we ever going to go back? I feel like we're not. I feel like it's just not
going
to happen.
Those days are long gone.
So then how does it get
really worse than 9/11 happens? Whether it's a financial disaster or an ecological disaster, until something really, I hate to say it, but the only time the country ever really came together was World War II
in September 12th.
and September 12th. And that's it. And those were two horrendous things. And the amount of life, obviously World War II is significantly worse in terms of the amount of lives lost and what it did to the country. I mean,
you know what? You're right, because World War II led to what the MAGA side and many people would believe the 50s and 60s, one of the most prosperous times in our country's history. So we had that bad event create such good times. And then on 9/11, we had that prosperity and unity after that. You're probably not too far off and wrong to say that we're going to barrel towards a cliff and hopefully not go over the cliff. And the only thing that's going to stop us is another complete and utter tragedy happening to this country to get us all to realize and remember that we're on the same
and to
team.
speak like people in their 20s that don't like American hegemony is the term that they would use. They kind of want to see America falter because they don't like the America that they're growing up in because of what they've seen in politics.
It's a fair assessment.
Was it?
It's a fair assessment.
I mean, 30 years of teaching, I still talk to a lot of kids, and it's not that they don't love their country. They just want their country to be what they thought it was going to be, what their parents told them that it would be. Now, there's a lot of blame to go around about kids and all blah 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 blah, but they're not getting the promise that my generation got, the opportunities like in some ways. And I think that that's where this is coming from. And again, this is why you have a podcast, and this is why Bitcoin exists, because we're all looking for another way to take care of ourselves because we don't feel like we can have any faith in our government. And that is, you can do any poll you want. Anybody can Google, I don't care what side of you're on, the faith in our government. Look at our Congress's approval rate, 12% or whatever it is. It's like we don't have faith in our institutions, and because they're letting us down. And I think that's like, from maybe depending on where you live in your local government, but we certainly have issues in our states. We have issues in our federal government. We have issues in so many things, and I think that's why people started looking at alternative ways to instead of fiat, and that's what you started a podcast about.
Yeah, I mean, the more and more I observe these social issues and situations like Minnesota happen, whether it's a school shooting, whether it's a law enforcement related shooting, whatever the case may be. And again, you're right. In a couple days, at least maybe a week, people will forget about it and they'll stop. It'll be the next thing that they talk about. But every single time one of these things happen, it's like ripping the Band-Aid off of a wound, and we get to see like how much of a gash we have, and the Band-Aids are not fixing it. Like we're so divided and polarized as a country, and social media is playing an enormous role in that. And people are being brainwashed and indoctrinated to believe anything that their algorithm is telling them to believe. And they've stopped questioning. That's the key right there. That's a good place to kind of wrap all this up as we're getting to the end. People have no longer found it useful to stop and take a look around and say, yes, I believe in X, Y, and Z, and I support X, Y, and Z. But let me just take a look and see another perspective on this and get some feedback to see if there's any holes in my thesis and theories on X, Y, and Z. And maybe I still feel the same after, but let me gather some new information. And the information that's not good, let me discard that. That doesn't exist. You have your echo chamber and your tribe, and anything and everything that's a part of that narrative, you will defend, even, like I showed at the beginning of the podcast, something that you can verifiably show is not true just from a date of birth that's put on something wrong. And you can see that it's obviously not a real document, but it's got millions and millions of shares. And people are using that as a place to plant a flag to support whatever narrative that they have.
Right.
And on the other side, people will say that because of this situation with ICE, that we should have no ICE officers. ICE should never exist. Immigration should just be, everybody should be here. And it's like neither one of those situations and ideologies is flawless. There's holes in both sides that should be discussed that neither side is willing to even have a conversation or a respectful discourse on. And both sides have completely shut the door on that. And it's all out war. And I think that you're right. You definitely hit the nail on the head that nothing is going to change. And we shouldn't be rooting for this. We really should not be rooting for this, but I think nothing changes until another 9/11 or Pearl Harbor comes on our soil again. Like a real serious altering event that shakes and rattles the United States of America to its core will be the only way that we get the reset that we so desperately need at this point in time. And I feel disgusting uttering that, honestly. Like, it feels gross to even say that. All right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, please follow, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We took this podcast in another direction, and I think, while Bitcoin is doing its chill out for a while, we're probably going to talk more about just real life events and what's going on in society, because that's what people are doing. That's what people are talking about. And again, ironically, don't trust, verify. Peace.